They say everyone hits rock bottom once. Some of us built a damn tent there. I'm Mike, 42. Been broke, bruised, and buried more than once. But I kept getting up, even when it didn't matter. This isn't a redemption story, just the truth, as it happened. And I'll tell you my story from that side. The kitchen always smelled like burnt toast and something unspoken. Mornings at our house weren't loud, they were tense. You could hear every scrape of a butter knife, every clink of the spoon in the sugar jar like it was echoing off the walls. My father sat at the table, hidden behind his newspaper like it was a goddamn riot shield. Mom moved around the kitchen like a ghost who hated her own house, quiet, quick, tired. No one said, "Good morning." That would have felt like kissing on the lips at a funeral. I was 17, built like a scarecrow and angry at everything. My backpack sat by the door, half-sipped, books spilling out like guts. I watched Dad peek over his paper with that usual look, like I was the rust spot on his perfect chrome bumper. "You gotta start bringing something to this house, or just keep eating for free." He didn't look at me when he said it. He never did. Mom didn't stop stirring the pot. She just pressed her lips tighter. That morning, I didn't answer. Not with words, anyway. I picked up my backpack, slung it over my shoulder, and walked straight out the door. He didn't stop me. That was the worst part. The last real fight with my father wasn't fists, though I thought about it. It was words. Cold, sharp, final. It happened 2 nights before I left. He'd had a couple beers, which for him meant 4, maybe 6. He wasn't a mean drunk. He was a clear one. Like liquor stripped away the fake politeness and left only the rusted steel underneath. I was watching some fight on TV. Boxing. 2 guys bleeding into each other like they owed each other pain. He sat down beside me without asking, beer in hand, stared at the screen like he hated it. Or maybe he just hated that I liked it. "You think this is something? You think throwing punches makes a man?" I didn't say anything. I knew better. But then he kept going. "You waste your time in those gyms, sweating like an animal. You think that's gonna feed a family one day? You think anyone gives a shit how hard you hit?" I should have shut up. Should have walked away. But something in me, something mean and cornered, spoke before I could stop it. "Better than hiding behind a newspaper and pretending you're a father." His eyes didn't go wide. They went cold. Like someone turned the dial from annoyed to done. He stood up. Not fast. Not threatening. Just slow, calm, dangerous. "You're not my son," he said. "Not the one I hoped for." Then he walked out of the room. And I sat there, watching the fight, not hearing a single punch land. I found more comfort in the smell of sweat and old leather than I ever did in my own house. The gym was in the back of a half-dead strip mall, wedged between a pawn shop and a liquor store. Fitting, I guess. You walk through the rusted door, and it hits you. Sour air, heavy bags swaying like old ghosts, the rhythmic thwack-thwack of gloves against mitts. That place didn't ask questions. It didn't care if you were angry or broken or just needed to hit something that wouldn't hit back too hard. Coach Donnie ran it. Ex-Marine, bad back, voice like gravel and bourbon. He never smiled unless you earned it, and I never did. But he let me stay. Let me punch until my knuckles went raw and my brain got quiet. Some nights I'd go there just to feel like I existed. I wasn't a son. I wasn't a student. I sure as hell wasn't a future. But in the ring, I was something, even if that something was just a pair of fists that wouldn't quit. Donnie once said to me, "You got anger like a junkyard dog, mean and loyal to nothing." I didn't argue. He wasn't wrong. She was always the one they were waiting for. The daughter. The soft thing after all the rough. When she was born, I was 9. I remember standing in the hospital hallway, holding a balloon I didn't pick, while my father beamed like he'd just won the goddamn lottery. First time, I saw him smile without beer on his breath. From then on, everything in that house bent toward her. Birthdays with cakes and streamers. School concerts with front row seats. Quiet conversations at night with Mom that I could hear through the wall. None of that was mine. I didn't hate her. That's the thing. I hated how easy she got everything I had to fight for. 2 days before I left, I tried to talk to her. She was 13, stretched out on the couch like a cat, headphones in, reading some glossy teen magazine. I sat down, waited. She didn't look up. "Jess," I said, do you even get why I'm leaving?" She pulled out one earbud, looked at me like I'd just interrupted her royal duties. "I don't know. Maybe if you weren't always such an asshole, people wouldn't hate you so much." Then she put her earbud back in. And that was that. I never asked for much. That's not some noble bullshit. I just knew better. But I did ask once. Senior year, guidance counselor pulled me aside and said, "You've got potential, Mike. Ever think about applying to trade school? Maybe even community college?" It hit me like a sucker punch. No one had ever said potential and my name in the same sentence. I went home that night with something stupid in my chest. Hope, probably. I waited until Dad was done with his second plate and third beer, then said it. "I want to apply to a program. Trade school, maybe HVAC. Could get a decent job after." He didn't look up from his plate. "Money's tight," he muttered. "You think we're made of it?" Mom didn't say a word. She just cleared the table like that meant the conversation was over. But it wasn't. Not for me. Later that night, I heard them talking. Their voices leaked through the paper-thin walls like smoke. "She'll need the money for college," my father said. "She deserves it." "Jess." "Of course. Not we can't afford both. Not let's figure it out. Just, she deserves it." And that was the moment I knew this house wasn't a home. It was a hierarchy. And I was nowhere near the top. I didn't find the army, it found me. There was this busted-up recruitment poster in the school hallway. Faded, half-torn, taped to the wall like no one had the heart to throw it out. Big bold letters, "Be all you can be." I used to laugh at that line. Seemed like something people said right before you got screwed over. But that day, after the whole college thing, I stopped and stared at it. Long and hard. Be all you can be. What the hell was I gonna be around here? An extra mouth. A punching bag. An afterthought. Next day, I skipped 6th period and walked to the recruiting office 3 blocks down from school. Door creaked like a warning. Floor smelled like old coffee and sweat. The guy behind the desk was a tired-looking sergeant with too many wrinkles and not enough patience. He looked me up and down like he'd seen 100 versions of me already. "Let me guess," he said. "Daddy problems, bad grades, nothing to lose." I didn't answer. He slid a brochure across the table like it was a deal with the devil. "You want out, kid?" he asked. "This is out." I took it, and I never looked back. The night before I left, I couldn't sleep. The bag was packed. Jeans, socks, 3 t-shirts, and the brochure. No goodbye note. No dramatic monologue. Just weight in my gut like I swallowed a stone. The house was dead quiet. Even the fridge sounded afraid to make noise. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, wondering if fear could kill you before anything else ever got the chance. Everyone talks about running away like it's freedom. But no one tells you how much it feels like dying a little first. I wasn't brave. I wasn't ready. Hell, I didn't even know how to shave properly. But I knew this. Staying would kill me slower. So I left before dawn. The sun hadn't even bothered to wake up yet. The bus stop was empty, the kind of empty that makes you doubt you exist. When the bus pulled up, it hissed like something alive. I climbed on, heart pounding like I was about to be arrested. I didn't look back. Not because I was tough, because I was terrified that if I did, I'd change my mind. The army didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like falling into a deeper hole, just one with uniforms. First morning, they shaved my head like they were erasing whatever I was before. Took my name, gave me a number. Took my clothes, gave me rules. Everything smelled like metal, mud, and someone else's sweat. There wasn't room for fear. Just orders and yelling and running until your lungs felt like they were trying to escape your body. I wasn't the weakest. I wasn't the strongest. I was invisible, and for a while, that felt like a relief. No one asked about your family. No one gave a damn who you used to be. In a weird way, it was the first time I didn't feel like a disappointment, because no one had expectations in the first place. But at night, lying in a bunk that smelled like detergent and despair, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder, if this is getting out, then where the hell did I just get into? Sergeant Booker was built like a fridge and talked like a preacher. He wasn't loud. Didn't have to be. His voice carried weight the way some men carry weapons, carefully and only when needed. He had a cross tattooed on his forearm. Said his mama gave him the Bible and his father gave him the belt. One taught him how to forgive, the other taught him how to fight. He believed in family. Said it all the time. There's family you're born with, and family you bleed with, and you respect both. One night, after drills, he caught me alone, sitting on my bunk, staring at nothing. You written home yet? He asked. I shook my head. He didn't judge. Just sat on the bed across from me, knees wide, forearms on his thighs. You ain't gotta make peace, he said, but you do gotta show him you're alive. That's not for them. That's for you. I nodded. Later, I took out some paper. Started writing. Asterisk hi, Mom. I'm okay. Don't know if you care, but I'm trying. Asterisk. I stared at the words for an hour. Then I folded the paper, tore it in half, and tossed it in the trash. I wasn't ready to reach out. Maybe I just didn't believe they'd reach back. For a long time, I thought, home was just a word people used to sell candles and doormats. They said it was where the heart is. I didn't even know where my heart was. Some days, I wasn't sure I had one. In the army, we had beds. We had bunkmates. We had order. But home? No. That was something you brought with you, if you had it. I didn't. There were guys who got letters, photos tucked in their lockers, packages with cookies and handwritten notes. I watched them open those boxes like they were oxygen. Me, I got silence. And I told myself I didn't care. Told myself I didn't need it. Told myself I was better off without the baggage. But the truth is, I envied them. Not for their families, but for the feeling of being missed. I used to think home was a place, a building, a dinner table, a voice calling your name without bitterness in it. But it's none of that. It's a lie, at least it was for me. Something you keep chasing until you're too tired to run. That's what I believed back then. Coming back felt like landing on a planet that looked like Earth, but didn't speak your language. The bus pulled into the station just after sunrise. Same cracked pavement, same rusted light poles, same goddamn smell of hot asphalt and burnt coffee. I'd been gone 5 years, but the town hadn't aged a day, just deepened its wrinkles. I had one duffel bag, a discharged ID, and the vague sense that I was supposed to be someone new. My brother picked me up. He still drove the same beat-up pickup, still wore that smug face like it owed him money. We hadn't talked much before I left. But toward the end of my service, he started sending birthday texts. Then a photo of Dad's grill out on the 4th. Then Mom's Christmas cookies. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't silence. And after a while, even that felt like progress. He gave me a one-armed hug when I climbed in the truck, like men do when they don't know if they're allowed to feel something. You look less angry. You look fatter, I said. He laughed. First real laugh I'd heard in weeks. We didn't talk much on the drive. Didn't need to. Silence wasn't so bad when it wasn't loaded with shame. That week, I stayed in his guest room. Mom called once. Said she was glad I was back. Dad didn't call, but I got a forwarded voicemail. Tell him he can stop sulking and get a job. Progress. Sure. The only thing that felt real was when I met up with Javi and Turner, the two guys I'd bled and laughed with through desert storms and sleepless nights. We hit a bar, clinked cheap beers, and by round 3, we were already drawing sketches on napkins. Business, construction, remodeling, honest work. 3 guys who knew how to suffer, ready to build something that wouldn't fall apart. We were stupid, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Starting a business sounds good at a bar at 1 a.m. We had sketches, quotes, fake optimism, and just enough whiskey to believe in ourselves. Javi had the hands, Turner had the numbers, and I had drive. And a small pile of savings from 5 years of dodging bullets and sleeping in sand. It wasn't much, but it was something. We filed papers, found a supplier, bought a used van that coughed like it had lung cancer. We were hungry, and when you're hungry, even drywall smells like steak. Only problem was, we needed more capital, more tools, better equipment, a proper license, advertising, something to get us off the ground before gravity noticed. I didn't want to go to a bank. I'd seen what debt did to people. So I did something I never thought I would. I asked my parents. I met them in their kitchen. Same cold linoleum. Same chairs that creaked like they didn't want to hold anyone up. I laid it out straight. No begging, no guilt tripping. It's a loan, not a handout. I'll pay it back with interest. Mom didn't say a word. Dad leaned back, crossed his arms. We're setting money aside for your sister, for her apartment. You understand. I nodded. I understood just fine. Same old song, different verse. That night, I applied for a loan at the bank. Got approved in 3 days. Interest rate was ugly, but not as ugly as being treated like the family footnote. Again, we started strong. First couple months, work came in. Renovations, drywall, kitchen jobs. We were good. People liked us. We believed. And that's when life remembered we existed. It didn't fall apart all at once. That would have been merciful. No, it died in pieces. First, a delayed payment from a big job. Then a botched bathroom remodel that cost more to fix than we got paid. Then a storm hit the city. Insurance held up every claim. And suddenly half our leads dried up. Javi tried to hold morale. Turner was crunching numbers like he could will them into submission. And me? I was lying awake at night doing math in my head like prayers. We started cutting back. Less marketing, fewer tools, old van instead of renting a second. Then we had to let go of the part-timer who helped with demo work. Good kid. Hard worker. I still feel like shit about that. I sold my truck. Then my laptop. Then my watch. Stupid, sentimental thing. It had a scratch across the face like a scar. I used to tell myself it matched mine. I kept making payments to the bank. On time. Every month. Like a man drowning who still insists on paying rent. We held on for almost a year. Then came the final job. Client refused to pay. claimed, poor workmanship, even though we followed the damn blueprint to the letter. Took us to court. We lost. Legal fees wiped out the last of the savings. And just like that, nothing left. I stood in the shell of our rented office. Blank walls. Coils of wire. Coffee machine that hadn't worked in weeks. And I laughed. Not bitter. Not angry. Just tired. We tried. God knows we tried. I was broke when my sister got married. Not tight on cash. Broke. I mean digging change out of the car seats broke. But the invitations came, cream-colored and embossed, like the happiness was pressed in with gold foil. Family gathered. 100 smiling faces. Flowers, music, champagne. And me, in a borrowed jacket and shoes that didn't quite fit. I still showed up. Sat in the second row, clapped when everyone else clapped, smiled when expected. I brought a modest gift. A set of handmade kitchen knives I got through a friend who owed me a favor. Apparently, that wasn't enough. 2 days later, Mom called. Her voice sharp, like she'd been holding it in. You couldn't find something nicer? It was her wedding, Michael. Dad got on the line after. You didn't even offer to help with the expenses. Your sister was embarrassed. I almost told him. About the debt. The office. The empty fridge. The nights I'd gone to sleep with nothing but water in my stomach. But I didn't. Because if they cared, they would have asked. And if I said it now, it would just sound like an excuse. So I took it. Silent. Later that night, Javi came over. Brought beer. Sat with me in the dark. Didn't say much. Just, you gave what you could. That's what counts. And for once, I believed someone. Turner left town 2 weeks after we shut the doors. Said he got an offer out west. Something with his cousin in real estate. I didn't blame him. He needed a fresh start. Hell, we all did. Javi stayed. He didn't have to. No money. No projects. Just me and a garage full of tools we couldn't sell for half what we paid. We cleared out the office. Gave away what we could. Hauled the rest to a storage unit the size of a coffin. That was a fun day. Later, we sat on the curb. 2 grown men in silence. Sun setting. Nothing left to say. Then Javi looked at me and said, "So what now?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Something. Anything. Just not quitting." He nodded. "Then I'm in." That's how it started. Again, we found a dusty old space on the edge of town. Leaky pipes. Cracked floor. Smelled like mold and dead dreams. But the rent was cheap and we had time. We turned it into a gym. It wasn't fancy. A couple punching bags, a squat rack, a mirror that made you look worse than you already felt. First month, we had 3 clients. Then 5. Then 1 kid started showing up every day. Quiet, skinny, with fists like frightened birds. He reminded me of someone. And I realized something. I never needed a crowd. Never needed applause. I just needed 1 man to stay. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and discover even more life stories.